Now live. Hello, I'm John from Broadsheet, and this is Tomorrow Tonight. We're very honoured to be joined by William Campbell. Oh, hang on. Who is it? Okay, sorry. William Campbell of the podcast Here's How. Good evening, William.
Good evening, John.
Your background is a mutant variant of the coronavirus.
I guess it is. Thought I'd be topical. I think it's been around for a while now, though.
Okay. The papers, we have an issue with Cloudflare tonight on the site. We tried to move from Google to another ad person, and I think they had to do something on the site. So the Cloudflare thing is, some pictures are shown and some pictures are not. So I'm going to go. But first, you're going to tell me about you have a podcast tomorrow.
We have a podcast coming out tomorrow. We had one about a month ago with Jim O'Callaghan of Fianna Fáil on his housing policy. I think you were impressed by the tenaciousness of the questioning there. A lot of that was based on freedom of information requests done by Eoin Ó Broin, who is the Sinn Féin, very, very able Sinn Féin housing spokesperson. And a lot of that focused on the fact that Fianna Fáil are essentially pumping taxpayers' money into the housing market with a fixed supply of housing and being chased by more money. That really, very basic economics would say that all that will do is push up the prices that developers can charge. And some FOI requests that Eoin Ó Broin had done, which we discussed with him, essentially shows that the officials in the departments were warning this, ringing bells and flashing lights, saying that this is bad news. The only thing that this taxpayer money is going to do is to make developers richer, which pretty much is an admission that the market exists. And Sinn Féin has very strong policies against taxing property. They want pretty much all land and housing exempt, with some small exceptions, but to have Ireland continue to have no property tax, which is unique in the OECD, and this means that a huge amount of money is sucked into the property market, inflating house prices. So we challenge him on that on the podcast.
So you've Eoin Ó Broin.
Yes, Eoin Ó Broin.
And how did you find him, William?
He is. I think he's hugely intelligent. I think he could wipe the floor with most of the ministers in the government. But I think the party as a whole, and he will stick very closely to the party line, the party as a whole is aware that they are vulnerable to the left from People Before Profit. And I think they lost a by-election to Paul Murphy now of Rise on the basis of the water charges, and they don't want to be seen to be pro-taxation, despite the fact that that massively benefits very, very rich people.
And he's Puritan, isn't he? Eoin Ó Broin.
He is a Puritan. I would love to know what goes on in his mind, and he's a very tight, cogent arguer. He's got a very good argument.
I met him one night socially years ago.
Yeah,
and I found it. Well, I tried sort of. I was being humorous with him. I thought. I think some of it was a bit.
Fell flat.
He takes it all very, quite seriously, as he should.
Yes,
anyway,
yes. I wouldn't recommend him to be an audience of one for a comedy routine.
No, certainly not. But he's very dedicated, certainly, and looks the part.
Mm-hmm.
The specs. This is what we were faced with this tonight on the Thursday's papers. As you can see, there is. Until you get to the Sligo Weekender. So what I'm going to do, William, if you can bear with me, I'll pull up the Irish Examiner, which is just out. Yeah, you can see that, can you?
I don't see it on your screen yet, but I'm sure you'll bring it up.
Okay, and if you need to, I can. Is there anything on there you'd like to discuss? The lead insert.
Well, why? Since we're on the Sligo Weekender, that's an absolutely terrible story. False rape claims are very rare, according to most police sources. But that's very damaging, and I can see.
Which one are you talking about?
The Sligo Weekender. I think
Oh, I
they're a
beg your
moment
pardon.
ago.
Sorry, I've got the Irish Examiner just over it. I just don't
Oh,
go
okay.
in order of.
Oh well, let's go to that. In
Uh,
that case, I haven't seen that. I didn't get that in your
okay,
mail, and
well,
it's
it's just
not coming up on
basically
my
the sort
screen.
of the news of the day. Perhaps the most interesting one being the four-faced charges of breaching health rules. The four
Oh yes,
organisers of Godgate.
yeah. One of the other things I think you heard me discussing robustly with Jim O'Callaghan was the fact that there's just a whole class of Irish people who don't do jail, and who I gave him a string. He being a senior barrister, I gave him a string of examples of people who, on the public record, had broken the law in very, very serious ways. Not least, a cardinal who had bullied two young rape victims into not reporting being raped by Father Brendan Smith
Yeah,
to the Gardaí. And Father Brendan Smith continued raping children for 18 years after that. And I gave there's a whole.
yeah.
I don't have the list in front
No,
of me,
no,
but
no. Yeah.
there's a long list of public figures who, on the public record, have either admitted to or have acknowledged that they committed crimes, and just a guard of investigation is never opened. That seems we seem to have broken the duck egg in
Well,
this,
yeah.
and
I think it's more for optics, really.
I think it is. Yeah, it would have been very, very difficult because this was plainly illegal under the COVID regulations, and to have 80 sweaty Fianna Fáilers packed into a room completely in contravention, and people having gone through such hardship, and people having missed funerals of people who are very, very close to them, people having cancelled their weddings, and then just just the venality of the dull golf society. And
yeah.
you look at the law breaking in terms of COVID, why are Supreme Court judges hobnobbing with politicians like this? I remember a long time ago.
Well, I could answer that.
Yes, you could. I think the listeners probably have a good answer. And to put it in
Wolf
context,
yesterday was sitting for the first time, I think.
that's right. Yes. Was not sitting on cases.
So this is very unusual, isn't it? You have a
Yeah,
Supreme Court judge for the same offence, essentially,
yeah.
but
Well,
not
judges
organised.
constitutionally are extremely difficult to remove, and rightly so. Judges shouldn't be dismissed on the whim of public opinion.
Yeah.
But to put it in context, one person that I know, not from Ireland, um, who was the child of a judge, told me that she was never given an admonishment more severe in her life than on one case when she, as a child, answered the door, and the person who had knocked on the door of their house handed a box of chocolates as a present. And she didn't know the person, but she accepted the box of chocolates, and the person went off. She was never more severely reprimanded, because how even the appearance of influence that would be gained by the gift of a box of chocolates was completely unacceptable. And we then have
You didn't actually need to say. You didn't need to say the person wasn't from Ireland.
yes, no, this is yes, and the fact that we have that closer relationship. One thing good thing that may come out of it is this idea of a judicial appointments body. Quangos tend to be set up in Ireland because of civil servant failure, and it's when a minister wants to try and make some progress, and they have to just basically tell the civil servants who've been doing the job up to now to say, okay, you sit there, you get your full salary until you retire, and then you get your very generous pension, but you don't have to do any work because I'm hiring some other people over here to do the job that you were supposed to do.
Okay. Well, they're facing charges anyway. Let's
yes.
Leaving Cert. Have you been following the Leaving Cert shenanigans?
I think that's tragic. I mean, it's really difficult for people doing the Leaving Cert, and I think, and I haven't seen whether that's confirmed or not, that to essentially cancel the Junior Cert in order to allow schools enough space to do the leaving cert. And I think that's probably the least worst solution.
Why are you a big junior cert fan?
No, no, no. But I think, I mean, clearly the leaving cert is a far higher stakes exam.
Yeah,
Um,
I always felt the junior and the inter was ruined that kind of period of your
in
adolescence. Yeah,
intercert back in our day. Um,
yeah, inter, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Um, I mean, it was.
That
I
was
mean, it was a
gas.
bit of a joke, but I mean, it was a dry
No,
run, and
it was taken overly seriously, like the leaving, and I remember just being terrified. The nerves and everything.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway, like I'm sure they don't. It's anyway, it's all perception. Drugs supermarket in Limerick Estate. Facebook wipes Oz news pages.
Ah, that's a very interesting story. Australia has basically passed a law that referrers, that would be
Yeah,
Google News or Facebook, have to pay for the news, and it
yeah,
seems like Google are threatening to pull out of Australia on the
yeah.
basis of this, but
It's true.
Facebook have folded and
Yeah.
are paying up, and that's I would imagine Google are furious with them because they but
But it means,
the,
I mean, if that goes sort of international, if it goes beyond Australia, I remember when the Irish Times were kind of promoting this idea that people should pay for linking back to them.
yes,
And we were given at the time like a million links back,
yeah.
and it was like, don't you realize that this is promotional for you,
But if you can't charge for the end product, then all the promotion in the world isn't really any good.
Yeah, but they land on your page, and then you've got a chance to kind of entice them and lure them in. I guess.
Yeah, but if people
And that's the way that we
read
well,
because of that, and that's and very often because a chunk of the article is then reproduced either on Google News or on Facebook or whatever. They never even click through. They just read the chunk that's on the Facebook page.
no, actually, on the contrary. I mean, I can show you statistics that disprove
Ah,
that completely. That people will land on our thing, look at
mm,
a line from it, photograph, and go through. I
uh,
mean, that's what we would present to them. So I didn't understand the logic of it. I do understand that people are just nicking your stuff wholesale, your
yeah,
photograph. But there are legal measures for that as well. Very quick, in terms of the internet copyright can be,
yeah,
you know, that can be dealt with with those laws. But so this payment thing, if Facebook are going to pay it,
yeah.
they surely can't afford that kind of on a worldwide basis.
I'll dig out the world's smallest violin that I can
Yeah,
play tomorrow.
but I think that whole Twitter, Facebook, even Google thing is completely changing at the moment, like to radically altering before our eyes. I think.
Yeah, but I mean, essentially, all three of them are advertising companies. They're selling advertising eyes.
Yeah, but they clearly don't. They're not run for profit as such at the moment. Certainly not for the next 10 years, because Twitter kicks Trump off 80 million followers. It's like all these anti-business kind of decisions.
I think they
know.
were looking at the least worst option for themselves there.
But there were no. I mean, just in general, they're positioning
Yeah.
themselves in a different space than they were before. Do you remember? Twitter was a kind of free or
Yes,
like
yes, yes,
you
yes,
know,
yes.
and Facebook as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
Rush
dominating.
along. Let's go. Let's
Yes,
see the next
please.
one.
The Irish Sun, 5 World Cups and I'll be out. Kinahan Yob, the cage for Mago kill bid. He got 20 years over a failed hit,
Yeah.
which is a message, certainly, isn't it?
It is. I would certainly think deserved every day.
Well,
Um, I would be tempted to elongate that, particularly given the fact that that the proportion of that sentence that he'll actually serve is relatively short. Um, the Irish prison sentences, even for murder, are very very light by international comparison. Even if you compare with the UK,
what should he get? 7 World Cups?
I don't know if I can count it
Give it a full
in World Cups. My sports knowledge isn't good enough even to
But
say that. I
every,
presume that's every 4 years.
yeah,
But no, I mean
five World
the
Cups have we had? I'd say it'd be actually two World Cups and we'd out in terms of
yeah,
way,
exactly.
sentencing,
Yeah,
etc. But
yeah, and no, but I mean the even compared to the UK, the standard murder sentence tariff, as it's called in the UK, is probably about 50% longer than it is in Ireland. Um,
yeah, sorry.
yeah, and that presumes that you can get a conviction. There's been very celebrated cases down the years of very very strange acquittals or people being found guilty of manslaughter, not murder.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, um,
I don't think Ireland has an over sentencing problem.
no. Leaving Cert gets June 9 go ahead. So Leaving Cert students will be given the option of a calculated grade or a written examination
Hmm.
in each subject. Personally, I'd love that myself.
Why
The
so?
graduated, I loved it because the felt exam was just such a
Yeah,
nerves.
I agree, but I mean, and it's very, I think it's fashionable to bash the Leaving Cert, and I completely agree with the difficulties that you mention. But the the other issue is that this is a very high stakes exam, and to find a method that is fair, particularly fair, like
It's not fair to people with bad nerves. Like, I mean, if you've got a nervous disposition and are you seem William, I'd imagine you were very good at rote learning. Was that
no, absolutely not. No, terrible, really, really terrible.
okay? Sorry.
Yeah, no, the reason I would defend it is not because it's brilliant, but it's because um, anything else is very much vulnerable to uh, to essentially middle class kids know how to suck up to middle class parents, and school teachers and anybody doing the exams are typically middle class parents, and working class kids, I think, will not do well out of that, and in some cases unfairly so. And with the best will in the world, and you don't always have it, there are good teachers, but there are also bad teachers. But even with the best will in the world, it's very difficult not to have a teacher's impression of the cultural fit with the pupil.
Right.
Give them have that influence their judgment.
Well, okay. So like a weekend, a woman 24 admits she lied about being raped.
Yeah.
Other
That's
two
that's
told
that's
changes.
horrendous. That's what I was you paused me on earlier, but that's there are. I mean, I'm sure this will be all over certain strains of social media in the morning. But first of all, obviously, it's a horrendous thing for this woman to have done. Um, but in a false rape claims are relatively rare. They clearly do happen sometimes, but they're an enormous cause célèbre for a certain train of thought that wants to, you know, denigrate any woman who has been attacked, and I, think this will be thrown back in the face of many women who are trying to report a real case, and it's tragic in a whole lot of ways.
Um, come back. I think I think we'll have the Irish Daily Mail in a second, but the Daily Telegraph. Parents to test children for COVID twice a week. I thought children were virtually immune from.
And they seem to be immune from the symptoms, as I understand it. Not a doctor, but as I understand it, they're more or less immune from the symptoms, but they can spread it. Um,
Okay.
but I wouldn't be getting my science reporting from the front page of the Daily Telegraph.
Okay. Duke in good spirits after hospital admission. Lord Frost replaces Golbus, talks over Northern Ireland.
That's a very significant story.
Why is that significant? I mean,
Frost is this guy. This is
yeah, I know,
Lord,
I know,
Lord,
but okay,
Lord Frost. He was made a lord a year ago or so in
yes.
order to give.
Okay, imagine we know all this, but why is this such a big?
I think what it is that because I mean he was brought in specifically for negotiating the Brexit deal. I think what this is an admission that the negotiations are only just beginning. And that they need him on board on this. And Gove is relatively media friendly character, but I don't think anybody would accuse him of being overly intellectual in terms of his ability of negotiating deals.
And is he, as a Remainer, a fierce one, William?
I am not I'm neither a Remainer nor
is
a
his
anything else.
lordship more of a Remainer than a Brexiteer? Would
Oh
you?
gosh! Oh no! He's absolutely a Kool-Aid drinker with Boris Johnson. But he was very closely associated with this announcement that they would be in the middle of negotiating the second treaty, that they would break international law and disregard the first treaty that they had signed. And I think they're trying to send a signal that they're going to play hardball. But Britain is in an incredibly weak position. That bluster doesn't really count very much in international negotiations.
Okay. COVID spreading most in children. This is the Guardian. It's funny, the UK papers are visible on the site, but we can't get the Irish ones up. It's that kind of spirit. The Times, thousands of students want jobs in nursing. I can imagine that being the case. If, they're heroes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get to dance, get to, the Independent Starmer, COVID crisis is a call to arms like 1945. The days of Clement Attlee, and I think his father was his grandfather. The 1945 administration, Labour.
Yeah, Clement Attlee was elected in 1945, was kind of a Labour Party government that, however many years, 60, 70 years later, Labour Party are still harking back to. There's this huge division within the Labour Party in the UK of Corbynite holdouts who seem to enjoy doing down Keir Starmer much more than they would beating the Conservatives. I don't have a particular love for any of them, but I think Corbyn his legacy is going to be very, very difficult for the Labour Party, because he was a natural opposition politician who felt he could promise and did promise anything. Keir Starmer wants to be Prime Minister, and is being very cautious for that reason. And,
okay. Yeah, I think he's harking back to a kind of even pre Harold Wilson kind of Labour.
Yes, that's exactly what he's doing.
Mulch of whatever. I don't think that'll work. The Daily Express, Prince Philip looking pretty spooked there next to Prince Harry vows to be back in UK for Diana tribute. I'm not sure the placement is
I can't tell you how little interest I have in the British royal family.
Okay. 4,500 to get COVID. Oh, hang on now. Now we're talking. 4,500 British volunteers aged 18 to 30 will be deliberately infected with virus in world first experiment to find new vaccines. Nothing to see there, William. The Spectator power jab. It's quite a good cartoon.
Yeah, I always love the Spectator covers. I think it's kind of a bit tired as a magazine, but whoever does those cartoons are pretty good.
Yeah, New Statesman, war against truth. Can the BBC save itself in a fractured nation from fake news? Okay. Yes. Physician, heal thyself.
Yes.
Financial Times. For us to do anything there, William, you want to seize upon?
I note, and I think it's very notable that on the Financial Times they're leading with that David Frost, or Lord Frost.
Sorry, I was very dismissive earlier, William. Forgive me.
That's not a problem. That says a lot about where Boris Johnson is heading post Dominic Cummings, and I think it says that they realise they have a lot of problems. Well, I think Dominic Cummings was the triumph of confidence over reality, that they really thought they could do anything, and that just crashed to earth. Um, I think I wouldn't underestimate the talents of David Frost. He was there to do a job, and um, I felt, and I said it all along, that the British would agree to an agreement at the very last moment, and it would be a terrible agreement. And I think that came true for them, and that's becoming more evident. And the stories, actually, I don't see it on any of the papers, but the stories today of essentially British Airlines are going to be crippled by the inability to fly anywhere, to do any internal flights in Europe. And there are just so many details. So many devils in the details of that for the British. And
I know you hate Brexit, William.
No, I don't. I mean, the British are entitled to leave, but they haven't made a decision about what way they want to go.
Okay, yeah, but there's dirty tricks on both sides. I mean, the EU have been, particularly the triggering the Northern Ireland Protocol.
This Article 16 thing of that was an idiot.
Why aren't you outraged about that, William? It's completely what the Brexiteers have been saying for years. This is how they treat people. We don't matter in the scheme of things. I mean, and Britain, perhaps they're prouder or something, because they just couldn't take that kind of behaviour.
Well, I would note that it was rolled back after, I would guess, one hot phone call from Micheál Martin.
Why did it get to that, William? How did it? They didn't even regard us in anything.
No, I would agree. I mean, I think, in fairness, the Irish Department of Foreign Affairs is one of the best performing departments.
Okay, William. I know. Okay. This is we end on brilliant news.
Yes.
Baldies with beards are the best in bed. Stop shaving. Any thoughts on that?
No thoughts whatsoever.
Okay. And the podcast will be up tomorrow, will it?
Yes. Yeah.
And we'll have it on the site as well.
Yes, I will send you a link.
Okay, William, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
At interesting evening. Thank you very much, and sorry for the technical difficulties earlier.
Not to worry. Hope you sort them all out. Have a good